Hi folks, welcome to another video, another series on my channel. This is a different sort of series for my channel anyway, but these sorts of videos are pretty popular throughout YouTube. It's a Football Manager 2019 experiment. I believe experiments have been popular for a number of years on Football Manager, at least since 2017, maybe even before that. I've never done them before, but now's the best time to do it because the new game came out, I think about a month ago, or certainly the beta came out a month ago. This is the full game though, so the database is going to be most up to date now, as opposed to like if I do this and say, well, there will be the January transfer update, but beyond that, the database is as realistic as possible for the current time now. That's why I'm doing it. So for those that don't know, an experiment, a Football Manager experiment, is basically where things about the database are changed in order to see what the outcome is. That's basically it. So you might get somebody giving money to a lower league team to see if they can rise up the divisions and win the Premier League or whatever. It's just basic stuff like that. There's even ones that I've seen recently where people import legends, past legends of the game, and see how they do in the current setup. My experiment it'll be over a number of episodes. I don't know how many episodes, but it's going to be fairly substantial, and the title of it is Pub League. The reason for that is because the Scottish divisions, or Scottish football in general, is referred to as a pub league, predominantly by people south of the border. Not everyone south of the border calls it a pub league, but a lot of them do, as well as various other people around the world. And the aim of this is really just to see how other teams would do in the English leagues. We're going to be starting this episode off with 4 Scottish Premiership teams in the English Premiership, not all at the same time, individually, and we'll see how they do. My aim for making this isn't to prove anything. I'm not here to prove that the Scottish leagues isn't as bad as people make out, or they are as bad, or they're worse, or whatever. The aim is just to see how teams would do, really. And we won't just be having Scottish teams in the Premier League, it'll be Scottish teams in the Championship, League 1, League 2. This is the English Championship, English League 1, English League 2. And we might have other countries involved as well. We might have English teams in the Scottish leagues. I'm going to mix up, see what happens. Anyway, let's get on to this then, shall we? I don't think I've forgotten to mention anything. Apologies for the long-winded introduction. I should also say that I've been playing a lot of Football Manager 2005 lately, so if I can't find my way around this game, you'll understand why. Right, so let's check out the English Premier Division. It's the only division that I have loaded, and I've loaded a pretty small database just so I can simulate the game as fast as possible. As you can see, the biggest difference with this division compared to the vanilla division, the normal division, is Celtic are one of the teams. I do apologise, I don't have the badges. There are some badges there. Watford have their own badge. Celtic have got their badge. They are the first Scottish team that will be simulated in the English Premier Division. The idea is that I will simulate it once, show you the results, and then I'll simulate it another 9 times to take it to a total of 10 sims, and then I'll just show the results, see how they did. The reason I've chosen Celtic as the first team is because they are obviously the number 1 team in Scotland at the minute. Of course, there'll be people that debate that because they, in theory, haven't won the most trophies out of all the clubs in Scotland. But, you know, for the sake of argument, they've won 6 or 7 or 8 leagues in a row. I can't remember. And so we're going to play them in this division, in the Premier Division in England, and see how they do. How do I expect them to do? Well, I did simulate this scenario in last year's edition of the game, and they got relegated every single time. So I'm fully expecting the same thing. Obviously, if Celtic are going to get relegated every single time, then clearly the other teams I simulate, the other Scottish teams I simulate in this, they'll get relegated every single time, purely because they're not as good. But for completion, for the sake of completion, I'm just going to simulate all 4 Scottish teams in this division, one after another. I'll tell you the other teams later on. So anyway, for those that don't know, by the way, simulation is just when you go on holiday and let the game run in the background without your interference, really. So that's really what I mean by simulation, or simming, or whatever. I don't even know if that's the right jargon or whatnot. Oh yeah, actually, before we start, let's have a look at the stages. Is it profile? It's season preview, that's it. The prediction of the league has them at 16th, so it thinks they'll just avoid the relegation zone. The teams going down, Fulham, Cardiff, both newly promoted, as well as Brighton. The team I took out, by the way, I had to take out one English team. I took out Huddersfield. I think I took out Huddersfield. I don't see them there. I made this database a wee while ago when I was thinking up this experiment. I think I took out Huddersfield because they were the lowest reputable team in the English Premier League, so that's the reason I've done that. I don't actually know much about the Celtic squad this season. I have seen Celtic play live this season. I wasn't supporting Celtic, obviously. But I think they do have a pretty strong squad. They did win the treble last year. I'm not sure if their squad is necessarily stronger than it was last year, but who knows? Maybe it is partially. But we shall see how they do. So, 450 to 1 to win the league. Not likely to get relegated according to the predictions. Let's see how they do. So, how did Celtic get on? We'll look at that in a moment. As you can see, we've got the Liverpool badge there and the English Premier Division logo. So I've installed a logo pack. First time I've ever done it. It was fairly easy. As I said, first time I've done it. Never really looked into it before just because I've never really made videos on this game. Let's have a look at the league. Okay, so this is interesting. As you can see, Celtic, that's Everton, Celtic here, finished 13th. That is very interesting. As I said, I tried this experiment in the 2018 version and Celtic were relegated every single time. But as you can see, they actually finished a pretty respectable 13th. I mean, obviously, let's see, the points tally was 43, so they were only 8 points above the drop zone. Not amazing, but it's still more positive than what some people would make out. Some people would probably assume they would just go straight down. But they did pretty well, 13th. Let's have a look and see how they did in the other competitions. Okay, so as you can see, they finished bottom of their Champions League group. This is kind of irrelevant because, well, they got into the Champions League based on the fact they won the Scottish League last season. But just for interest's sake, they came bottom of their group. No points either, which, yeah, a bit disappointing. I like the fact it's got nation and then it's got England next to them, which is, yes, interesting. Obviously it makes sense because they're playing in the English League. Also, as you can see, they're in the same group as Liverpool. Even though Liverpool are in the same division, you wouldn't get that normally in the Champions League. But I'm guessing that's as a result of them, well, Celtic coming from Scotland and Liverpool coming from England. So how did they do in the other cup competitions? FA Cup, lost to Everton in the FA Cup 4th round. I'm not sure what round this is in comparison with the final, but it looks like there's still a lot of teams in. They lost a fellow Premier League team, and it looks like it was after a replay, so no shame there. Everton did finish below them, but good effort. Let's have a look at the League Cup, I'll just call it. And they lost to Stoke. Stoke are in the division below, aren't they? Yeah, so this was a bit of an upset. We can have a look at their squad real quick. Let's have a look. Who was their top scorer? Oh, this is their player who they signed for, I think it was 9 million or something like that. Edouard. He's French, right? Yeah, French. So he was their top goal scorer. He certainly looks like a good player, that's for sure. Anyone else? Who was the highest with average rating? Edouard was up there. Kieran Tierney stepped up to the plate. At the first attempt, Celtic have survived in the English Premier Division, which is fantastic. I'm going to run the simulation another 9 times to take the total to 10, see where they finish. I'll record it and then we can have a look at their stats at the end of the video. Okay, so I've simmed the Celtic part of the experiment 10 times. We're going to move on to the next team. Now the next team I've selected is, we'll just have a look at them here. If we can search up the English Premier Division, there they are, Aberdeen. Now the reason I've chosen Aberdeen is because they're kind of like the best of the rest, if you like. Celtic are kind of like streets ahead of everyone, and then Aberdeen, they finish second most seasons. They're obviously of a closer standard to all the other teams compared with Celtic, I think. Personally, that's what I think. I don't know, but either way I thought it'd be good to give Aberdeen a go, see how they do in the English Premier Division. So once again, we'll have a look at season preview. And there we have it. Aberdeen are right down there at 1,000 to 1. They are pretty much guaranteed to finish 20th according to the the odds here according to the prediction, and I would fully agree with that. They drew with Burnley. Technically, they drew with Burnley twice in real life this season in Europe. But obviously, with all due respect, that's just Burnley, and that was just 2 games. So I reckon they'll get a few points. I think they could get over 10 points. What's the record lowest points tally is like 11. Okay, fewest points in a season was for the Premiership only, for the post 1992 it was Derby County. As you can see, they only got 1 win. However, football was invented before 1992, and you have to go back to 1890 when Stoke only got 10 points. I think Aberdeen can get more than that, but we'll only know until we've experimented a bit. So this is their team so far. They have played a game because they're in Europe this season. Their top player, well, who's most expensive? 11 million. Maybe that's because he's more expensive because he's playing in England. Yeah, their team's not going to be that strong. They've got Joe Lewis, Graham Shinnie's good, Niall McGinn's alright. He's 31 now though. Still got a lot of pace for a 31-year-old. Gary Mackay-Steven's pretty good. His mentals are lacking, unfortunately. That is the Aberdeen team, and I'm now going to simulate one season. We'll see how they did after that. I fully expect a 20th position finish, but you never know. Okay, so how did Aberdeen get on in the English Premier Division? It's time to check out how they did. Okay, that's not as low down as I thought they would finish. I mean, they still got relegated, but they finished 19th. They didn't exactly finish bottom. So, yeah, 6 wins, not bad. 7 draws. Let's see who some of these wins were against. Let's put to shame the teams they beat. So yeah, they were in the Euro Cup. They actually got to the Euro Cup, looks like the 4th qualifying round. Is that not like the playoff round right before the group stages? So they did well in that regard. Who did they beat? Oh man, they got to the Carabao Cup quarter-final. And then they got knocked out in the 3rd round of the FA Cup, so that's not so good. But in the league, they beat Everton 3-1, they beat Southampton 2-0, they beat Leicester 2-1, Crystal Palace 2-1, Watford 2-1, and any others. Is that it? I think that's it. So those were all their wins. No big teams, they didn't take any huge scalps, but they did alright. See, Stevie May scored there, former St Johnstone player. Oh, he's at Dundee now. He must have got transferred. I wonder why he chose Dundee of all teams. But anyway, yeah. So that's interesting. They finished second bottom again. Not quite as their points tally. I'll be honest, isn't quite as good as the points tallies that Celtic were getting. But there's promising signs. Unfortunately, I suspect they'll finish down there for most of the other attempts. And we can go and just quickly check out their competitions. As you can see, there's confirmation they got knocked out in the 3rd round of the FA Cup by Chelsea, which was won by Chelsea, and they were also knocked out in the quarter-final of the Carabao Cup. Not too bad, that's a decent cup run, but they did get relegated in the end, unfortunately. And there's their confirmation of oh look, Man United won the Euro Cup, the Europa League. There's confirmation of their 4th qualifying round exit in that cup. So yeah, not too bad. Now, as with the Celtic game, or the Celtic part of the experiment, I am going to sim this another 9 times, and then we'll be on to the 3rd of 4 teams. Okay, so I've simulated the game for Aberdeen in the English Premier League, and now we're going to move on to the 3rd team, and basically, spoilers, Aberdeen got relegated every single season. So, I fully expect the next 2 teams to get relegated every single season. And the reason I'm doing them, the reason I'm testing these teams is because I'll be testing these teams in all the other English divisions as well, along with Celtic and Aberdeen in future episodes. So it kind of makes sense to do them in the Premier League as well, just to make it more of a complete experiment. I like completion. So we're going to do them anyway. They'll probably come 20th every single time. I'll be stunned if they don't. I was stunned that Aberdeen came 19th in the previous clip. But basically, I'm going to reveal the teams now. First team is actually going to be... yep, there they are, St Johnstone. So I'm going to do my favourite team first. And the other team will be Hamilton Academical. Now, I'm not going to show the first take or the first simulation. I'm just going to sim it all the time, and then I'll show you the results at the end of it. The reason I'm going to be experimenting with them is because they're kind of a middle of the road side. Oh yeah, can I just say I really don't like the badges for nations. I prefer to look over and see the flags because they're more recognisable. But I mean, I can get used to seeing that for Scotland. It's a lion rampant, kind of like one of our flags. But I do prefer the flags there, so I'll probably remove the nations' badges or logos from the pack. But anyway, that's by the by. So yes, St Johnstone, in reality, we're kind of a mid-table team in the Scottish Premiership. We finished 4th 3 years on the bounce, and then we finished 8th last year. It was our first bottom 6 finish in so many years. So we're kind of a mid-table side on average, I would say. So I think Saints can provide some a difference to the experiment, because Celtic were like the best, Aberdeen was best of the rest. We're kind of like middle of the road. Hamilton, well, they're not the worst. I mean, at the minute they're not bottom of the league. They're not in the position of Dundee or St Mirren, but in Football Manager they're the least reputable side in the top division. So we're going to try them out as well, just because they're the least reputable. Doesn't mean they're the worst. I mean, they've stayed in the division for a few years, and we will be experimenting with them as well. So I'll simulate the game 10 times for St Johnstone, 10 times for Hamilton Academical, and we'll see how we do. Hopefully we don't finish bottom at least one year, but I've got a bad feeling that both Saints and Hamilton will finish bottom. But keep in mind, the whole point of this experiment is to experiment, to see where Scottish teams would finish in the English divisions. So that's what we're going for here. Let's find out how they do. And here are the results. This is the part that you may have been waiting for. This is a chance to have a look and see how all 4 teams did in each of their Premier League seasons throughout the experiment. As you can see, there's a lot of red there. Red obviously implying relegation. And first of all, what I will say is I'm quite happy with the variety of teams that I chose, because obviously Celtic, as I said, top team in Scotland. But then, even between St Johnstone and Hamilton, Hamilton are the least reputable team. Maybe that showed in their performances, because they never broke into double figures for points, but generally with points they did worse. Not much worse. A lot of their points tallies were even, but St Johnstone did break the 10-point barrier 4 times. You can read into that whatever you want, but I'm happy with the variety of teams I chose. And of course, in the English Premier Division, which is one of the most competitive, which is, well, it has some of the best players in the world. Of course, you're not going to be able to tell much of a difference between these two teams, but even those little differences, I think they matter. So anyway, we'll just have a brief look then at Glasgow Celtic. How did they perform? Well, as you can see, they only got relegated 4 times. They never finished bottom. Lowest finish was 19th, where they actually got more points when they finished 19th than this season when they finished 18th. So obviously a lot depends on how teams around about them did. Their highest finish was actually 11th, so their second highest was 13th, that was the one I showed, but they actually finished as high as 11th, a solid mid-table finish. That was their highest points tally as well, 47, not bad. Their lowest points was 32. Overall, as far as league positions go, you could say the Celtic team of this season would be a kind of lower mid-table side. Clearly they're not the worst team in the league, they're not the weakest, but they aren't the best either. They're not going to push the top 6 the likes of Everton do. They're not going to get into the top 6. I would be tempted to think they could break into the top half if I simulated it a lot more, but that would just be a one-off or whatever. And to be fair, compared with the results of the other teams, it's actually pretty positive. As far as their cup form goes, they actually got to the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup once, got to the quarter-final of the FA Cup a few times, quarter-final of the Carabao Cup once. In terms of Champions League, obviously that's kind of irrelevant in the context of this experiment, but they did get to the last 16 once. They got to the Champions League group a lot as well, although they mainly came last, which isn't so good. So that was Celtic. Aberdeen, though, unfortunately they got relegated every time. Unlike the other two teams, they did finish 18th and 19th on a couple of occasions. They got actually over 20 points all but 2 of those times. They got 11, which is equal to Derby's record low. Over 20 points isn't, it's not the worst thing ever. And as you can see, there was in some cases there was other teams that were worse than them, but obviously they were just not strong enough for this league. Their cup form isn't as good as Celtic's. It's better than St Johnstone or Hamilton's. They got to the quarter-final of the Carabao Cup once. In terms of Europe, again, doesn't really make much of a difference, but they were mainly knocked out in the qualifying rounds, either the 4th qualifying round or the 3rd. They did get to the group stage a few times, and even the knockout stages of the Europa League once, but as I said, that's irrelevant, but just interesting to look at. In terms of their actual stats, their highest points tally was 28, which people usually say 40 points is enough to survive. as you can see, they got 28 and 2 teams finished below them. So, I'm sure that points tally of 40 was overestimated for that particular season. I'm sure you could have survived with a lot less than that, but unfortunately they never attained that. They didn't score too many goals, conceded a lot as you would expect, lost a lot of games too, unfortunately. That 11-point season stands out as a bit of an anomaly. I wonder why that is. I wish I'd saved. I never saved any of the games. I always just deleted them and went back to the start. But yeah, that seems to stand out as an anomaly. Anyway, we'll have a look at Hamilton and St Johnstone's form. So both teams finished bottom every time. I'll confess that instead of filling it out as I went, I just filled out the 20th position before I even started simulating for both teams, just because I didn't expect that much. And I was proven right. Their cup form is distinctly mixed, although Hamilton's is a lot worse. Saints did get past the first round they played. I assume the first round they played was third round of the FA Cup, second round of the League Cup. They got past that on a few occasions in both cases. Hamilton, though, they only got past the first round they played of both cups twice per cup, so they were distinctly worse. They were also, as I said, distinctly worse with points. They never broke the 10-point barrier. Their highest points was 7 on 3 occasions. Saints, we got... I say we. St Johnstone, I'm going to be impartial here. St Johnstone got 15 points as their highest total. They got 14 once as well, 13-11. Not too bad. They got more points than Aberdeen's anomaly season. But yeah, I guess in conclusion, we concluded that Celtic were probably on balance a lower mid-table side. The sort of side that would be scrapping to avoid relegation at the end of the season. Unlikely to push into the top 10. Aberdeen, yeah, they're just, again, too weak for the division. And as for St Johnstone and Hamilton, well, it just goes to show the gulf in class between the actual Premiership and, I guess, the bottom half of the Scottish Premiership. But that's okay, this is just the beginning. As I said, I did all 4 teams in this division just for completion. I wanted to make sure that each team's progress was documented per league. Next episode, we'll hopefully move on and do all 4 teams in the English Championship, see how they do there. But, we can safely say that the English Premier League is... well, streets ahead of a lot of these teams. Not that that was unclear. Not that I doubted that. It's just we've got it here in confirmation. And this isn't supposed to be some sort of humiliating series either. I'm not here to, as a Scottish football fan, I'm not here to say, oh, look how bad our league is. I think this says more about how wealthy, shall we say, how wealthy and how reputable the English league is, more so than how bad our football is. Another thing you've got to keep in mind is the reason English football and Scottish football are compared is because we're like direct rivals almost. Like we share the same island effectively. I don't want to be disrespectful here, but you don't normally get people comparing like English football, say, with Bulgarian football, or English football with Ghanaian football, or football in Suriname, or whatever. If there are established leagues in those countries, which I'm sure there are. But the point is, the reason that we're contrasted so much with England is because we live on the same island. In some cases, we've got the same media outlets. With social media now, you're going to get more interaction that you wouldn't have had before. So that brings to an end the first episode of this Football Manager 2019 experiment. It's been interesting for me, certainly. I'm going to give it another shot, as I said, next episode. All 4 teams in the Championship. Keep in mind in future episodes it won't just be these teams. We're going to get maybe foreign teams. We're going to maybe put English teams in Scotland or English teams in other leagues. Yeah, it's just a bit of fun. I'm not trying to prove anything, or I'm just interested to see how teams would do in different leagues. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Take care. I'll see you another time.